Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the dark side of Gemini. And yes, it does apply and pertain to the Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. And I'm basically going to be talking about Gemini in its most negative expression, negative manifestation, and really negative manifestations of Gemini. And anyway, the thing about Gemini is, okay, we know that the symbol of Gemini are the twins. Now, most Geminis and most people in general don't actually have a dual personality, but Geminis can often show behavior that could at least resemble that and make some people wonder sometimes, because Geminis can be very fickle, flighty, and changeable, very mercurial. Gemini, the thing about this is that they could change their stance on something in a heartbeat. I had a friend one time that had Gemini rising, and she had expressed some interest in me, and she acted like she was real infatuated and enamored with me. And then it was like within a few days, she called me up and said she changed her mind. It was going against her values or something, and she said she just didn't feel interested in me anymore. So it just kind of sums up the Gemini way. I mean, Geminis could be very contradictory. They could go one way one minute, and then the next they can go completely the opposite. Now, Gemini is not a sign which you would thing about the dark side. Another dark side of Gemini is the fact that there can be this hidden temper that you really don't suspect with them, because Geminis, even though they're not associated with necessarily being volatile or violent, what it is they could be very high strung and have a very excitable temperament. And what happens is when that does come out, then it can result in some very angry behavior. And the fact that Gemini is an air sign, it can be very unpredictable and spontaneous as well. Gemini, if they Geminis are generally very amicable, amiable, very friendly, generally have a good disposition. But the thing about them is if they get angry at somebody, they could really put you down in a heartbeat, because Gemini has such a strong way with the English language, or whatever language they happen to be speaking. I should just say the general way of words regardless of language. So, and I mean, they often are very articulate, have very extensive vocabulary. Another dark side of Gemini is the fact that Gemini is at times in its worst expression and manifestation. They could do whatever to buck the system. The same intellect, they're very cerebral Geminis, the same intelligence that they can use to do things that are positive, that are productive and beneficial, they often may use to outmaneuver a system. And the thing about it is, I think Geminis will often try to rationalize what they do, even if it is something that's not ethical, it's something that might be unlawful, and because they just have that way where a Gemini can sell an igloo to an Eskimo. Geminis are very persuasive, and I think sometimes they even convince themselves of, even if it's some wrongdoing, they may convince themselves, well, this is justified, or I took this, I stole this just to, that this actually facilitates the economy by taking this without paying. I mean, I can take this and then it'll facilitate the economy. It's no big deal, and then it'll just brush it off like it's nothing. And the thing is, Geminis can also, in a very strong negative expression, or a dark side of Gemini, can be very exceptional con men or con women or what have you. They can be very conniving, and they could use this to their utmost advantage. Geminis can also, when expressed very negatively, can use others and to really to meet their own ends, and then when they're done with it, those people, they can just discard them like whatever, because Geminis, it really, even as far as just in general, they're not exactly the most compassionate people, and they might not wind up who gets hurt in the process of their actions a lot. I had a friend one time, and I use the term loosely, who had Gemini rising, and it seemed like he was just calling me up or wanted to contact me most often when he needed something. And the thing about it is, this is just something about Gemini where they will, in a real negative expression, will use others to meet their own ends for their own benefit when it's convenient for them. Geminis could be, of course, they can vacillate, they could be moody, it could be sometimes what happens with Gemini being very sporadic and inconsistent. They could be the kind of person who'll call you up one time, or call you up even for maybe for days on end, and want to do something with you. And then all of a sudden, weeks can go by and you might not hear from them again, because Geminis, they are just, a lot of this just simply has to do with the fact that they can become bored easily. They're a very restless mind and body. They might feel that there's something with the friendship that's monotonous, or maybe they just, if it's a situation where it's closing in on, say, something intimate, or like, say, a romantic or a significant other type of relationship, a lot of times they'll just drift away for a little bit because of the fear of the closeness is all that's about. And what's interesting too, I was talking before about Geminis can sometimes give the impression they have a dual personality when they really don't. Some of you people out there, maybe older people, middle-aged or older, like myself, may have heard of Kenneth Bianchi. He was known as the infamous Hillside Strangler, and his sun is in Gemini. And the thing about it is, he at least pretended to have some kind of multiple personality disorder. I just thought that was very ironic for imagine that a Gemini pretending to have a multiple personality disorder in order to extricate himself from a harsh punishment in terms of jail time. He was obviously trying to get some kind of reduced sentence, or maybe get sent to some psychiatric ward as opposed to being confined in jail. But I thought that was very interesting as far as that goes. And the thing about it is, in the name he was using, and the other is, as far as his quote other personality went, he actually got from someone I think he knew. So, and I thought that was very interesting. He tried, but I think it's safe to say he was more likely than not faking that. And of course, trying to be shrewd like a Gemini can be very cunning and shrewd, and sometimes using it for negative purposes, of course. And the thing about Gemini too is that they could be, of course, the tricksters of the zodiac, and sometimes this is done, of course, just to meet their own ends, unfortunately. And really, people, that will pretty much do it, and that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for the dark side of Gemini. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be talking about the dark side of the zodiac sign Cancer. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone. Because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.